So today was the first day that the Packers media was able to attend OTAs. It started yesterday for the Packers, and so today was the official second day. But as I said, it's the first day that the media was able to be there. And so we have a lot of different updates to go over from many different reporters. And for these OTAs, they take place yesterday and today, May 27th, 28th, and then May 30th, June 2nd and 3rd, and then June 5th. And then mandatory minicamp will be June 10th through 12th. And then it came out earlier today as well that training camp will start on July 23rd. So we're getting closer and closer to the season coming back around. Now, first off here from Ryan Wood, he says, Packers not present at voluntary workouts. Jair Alexander, Elton Jenkins, cornerback Tyrone Herring, and then offensive lineman John Williams. I don't think it's too big of a deal when it comes to Jair Alexander, just because of the news that came out yesterday that the Packers did present him with a, restructured deal. He has yet to accept it, that we've heard, but I think that's a sign that the Packers and Jair are moving in the right direction to potentially stay with each other in 2025. And it also came out in Matt Schneidman's article that Jair Alexander does plan to attend mandatory minicamp, even if the contract isn't resolved. And so that's why I don't think it's a big deal that he was not there at these voluntary workouts, because he plans to attend the mandatory camp in the next couple weeks. So no, I don't think it's too big of a deal. Then Elton Jenkins also not there. Hard to know if it's a big deal or not. Elton Jenkins, the news did come out in the past month to past few weeks. Hear from Packers wire Zach Cruz, who said, according to reporting from Jason Wilde of Channel 3000, Jenkins has not participated during the Packers offseason workout program so far because he wants to rework his contract before switching positions to center. So that's what happened a few weeks ago, and so that could be part of the reason that Jenkins isn't here. Maybe it's possible if things were worked out in his mind, then he would be attending, but we don't exactly know there. So that's something we'll continue to keep an eye on. Now here from Rob Domofsky, who says, those not seen are apparently not here. He says the same as Ryan Wood. Then he adds, injured/rehab group. Quay Walker, Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, Jeremiah Martin, Nesta Jade Silvera, Jaden Janke, John Fitzpatrick, and Warren Brinson. He also says, also have not seen Brandon McManus. We do not know the extent of these injuries. Maybe if there are some interviews later today, the Packers will let the media know what these guys are dealing with and maybe how long they'll be out. But my first thought is it's not great to see Marshawn Lloyd there, because it sounded like in the past couple weeks that he seemed to be okay. Maybe it's not serious, but he's dealt with so many different injuries, and he's injured right now as well. And then for the rest of these guys, we'll keep an eye on it to see maybe the extent of what these injuries are. And then from Rob Domofsky, he says, Christian Watson is far enough into his ACL rehab to at least go through stretch before the OTA fieldwork began outside. For Watson, odds are he comes back somewhere, maybe in the middle of the season because of his ACL injury, but at least he's, making a little bit of progress there. Then from Andy Herman, he says, first team offensive line working with Jordan during Indy. Walker, Banks, Ryan, Monk, and Tom. Jenkins is not there. And so because of that, Sean Ryan's at center, Monk's at right guard. And then Andy Herman adds Jordan Morgan, working at left tackle with the twos. Wouldn't read anything into it at this point. So Morgan does not start off with the ones. But as Andy Herman said, I really feel like in OTAs, it's hard to know, how much emphasis we should put on exactly, who comes out first, things like that. Obviously, as training camp comes around, we'll get a clearer idea. But that's something where for the rest of OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, there's a lot of uncertainty about who's going to start where on the offensive line. And so that's how it looked today. And then from Andy Herman, Kenny Clark working to the side without his helmet today. He's definitely doing some work. And then he also says, just doesn't look to be a full participant. And then from Weston Hodquist, Matthew Golden takes a punt return rep behind Reed and Dobbs, catches it naturally. So maybe Golden could be taking some punt returns this year, potentially. We'll see. And then from Andy Herman, team activities starters. On the defense, we have Gary, Wyatt, Wooden, Lucas Van Ness on the defensive line. And as you noted, Kenny Clark was seemingly, on the side there for a little bit. So he's not in that starting lineup. Then at linebacker, Cooper, Hopper, McDuffie. At corner, Nixon and Hobbs. And then Williams and Xavier McKinney at safety. And so I think it makes sense. Jair is not there. And so Hobbs and Nixon on the outside. Carrington Valentine comes in later in nickel, and Hobbs moves to the nickel there. And then the offensive starters, Love, Jacobs, Dobbs, and Melton at receiver. And then Musgrave and Kraft at tight end, Walker, Banks, Monk, Ryan, Tom on the offensive line. And of course, Melton at receiver. Matthew Golden is a rookie. And so, of course, some of these things we could see the veterans out there, the guys who have been here longer out there in front of some of the rookies and until they get a grasp of some things. And then here from Rob Domofsky, Jordan Morgan also working at right guard and Sean Ryan at center with the number one offense. And so I do wonder who's going to be the backup center. It could be Sean Ryan, could be Jacob Monk. And we're going to watch for that guard competition. Is it Sean Ryan, Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton? Questions will have to get answered as time goes by. Then Ryan Wood, Packers starting offensive line. Elton Jenkins absent. That's actually the same there. But he adds Jordan Morgan getting reps behind Walker at left tackle on starting offensive line. Anthony Belton working at right tackle and left tackle on OL2. And so we're going to see the tackle battle. Left tackle is a Rasheed Walker, Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton. I assume Zach Tom's going to stick at right tackle, but we'll watch that. Then Weston Hodquit's first look at nickel. It's Hobbs inside with Nixon and Valentine outside. So that's understandable. That very well could be the starting corner group in nickel if Jair doesn't come back, but I feel like he's going to, with the fact that Packers are now willing to give him a restructured deal, but we still have to see Jair accept it. So that's still an if, but I feel like it's going to happen, especially considering Jair plans to come to mandatory minicamp unless we see something else happen in the near future. Then from Ryan Wood, Nate Hobbs with an impressive pass breakup against Jordan Love covering a Tucker Kraft slant. Hobbs getting a lot of reps at nickel. His chances of lining up inside increase significantly if Jair Alexander stays in Packers secondary. And so I think Nate Hobbs, the Packers giving him, close to 11 to 12 million a year. That's a pretty sizable investment at corner, and so it's good to see him already making some plays. Then from Weston Hodquist, worth mentioning Bullard not doing team, and Junior has been working as number 2 nickel. That's Gregory Jr., who recently was added here. And Rob Domofsky also adds, here's a guy to keep an eye on, cornerback Gregory Jr., a former 6th round of the Jaguars, who was signed last week, has been getting some work in the nickel with the number 1D. So Gregory Jr., he played in 10 games with the Jaguars in 2022 and 2023, and during his time there, he played 63 snaps in the slot and 36 outside, so that's notable that he's already getting some work with the ones, so he may have a leg up on lots of these depth pieces or backups at corner, because there's 11 or 12 corners on the roster currently. And then we have from Ryan Wood, Javon Bullard not taking team reps. Going to be real interesting where he slides into secondary. Currently a 3-man rotation at safety with Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams starting, Zane Anderson rotating in behind them. So I'm not sure why Javon Bullard's not taking part in team reps. Not sure if it's injury or what's going on there. And then from Paul Brettel, not a huge surprise, but a lot of 12 personnel with Kraft and Musgrave. So 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And maybe we'll see more of that this year, if Kraft and Musgrave can, stay healthy all season long. And then here we have from Andy Herman, everything is at a slow pace, but just a veteran practice from Jordan Love. Everything just looks clean, natural, full understanding of the offense, etc. Can't believe it's year 6 already. Time isn't real. And so now Jordan Love does have, 2 years starting under his belt, and I think that's one thing with NFL quarterbacks. The more time you have playing football, the more time you have, the more experience you have assessing defenses, making reads, the better you're going to get. So I think that's something that we could see some improvements from Love here in year 3, just because, now he has multiple years under his belt. And then from Wes Hodquist, biggest offensive play of practice, Love hits Wicks on a deep corner, probably 50-ish yards. the Packers have so much wide receiver depth, and that's one thing with Dontavian Wicks. If he can fix some of his drop issues, I think he has the ability to still be a very solid receiver, and we've seen him make a lot of big plays, and he made one today, it seems. Then another one from Wes Hodquits. Nate Hobbs breaks up a love pass intended for a Kraft on a slant in 7-on-7. I may have shared that recently or before a little bit as well. But he adds, not now, just did the same on a pass for Musgrave. So Nate Hobbs flying around. And then Andy Herman also says, Nate Hobbs has had a couple pass breakups in the 65-ish% speed 7-on-7 in team drills. Melton and Dobbs have both had balls go through their hands, although the throw from Love to Dobbs was well behind Romeo. I feel like, sometimes to start OTAs when they're just getting back to the swing of things could be a little bit of rust, and I feel like that happens a lot when training camp starts, and then as they get more into the swing of things clean up. But clearly, with the Packers, dropping a lot of passes last year, you don't love to see it, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Guys are going to drop passes from time to time. Then from Andy Herman, Dontavian Wicks has had a really nice practice and looks a bit bigger this year. As a reminder, I will never sell my Wicks stock. He'll be playing in the UFL in 2034, and I'll still be saying he just needs one more shot. So as I said about Wicks earlier, I think he still has a ton of potential. He's so good at getting open. He just needs to clean up his drop problems. And then a few more here we have from Wes Hodquits. Malik Willis led a nice drive with a twos, including a 29-yard pass to Musgrave. Robinson had a nice breakup on the series. It's really nice to have a legit backup behind Jordan Love because we saw what Malik Willis did last year when Jordan Love went down. So props to Brian Gutekunst for, trading for Malik Willis before the season because it was very impactful last year in the Packers' overall record. He is in his final year here, and so we'll see if, I just don't know if the Packers would pay him after this year. I assume some other teams out there were probably willing to pay him more money, but it's great to have him here at least this year as a backup. And then I think that's actually the final one there. So that's pretty much all the updates from OTAs today. I'm pretty sure the next practice the media can be at will be on next Tuesday. And so I'll share some updates next Tuesday, so feel free to stay tuned and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any Packers news. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.